cybernetic organism sent to amplify your guitar tone.
So I'm using my FM3, very basic setup. It's the 5153 100 watt red. The only thing I did here is in the speaker tab, I set it to the speaker impedance curve of a 2x12 recto, as it seemed to match quite well with my VHT 2x12 fat bottom. That's a lot to take in, but that speaker impedance curve seemed to work very well with this cab. And I think it's important when you're using power amps with modelers, or especially when you have this sort of control, that you try out the speaker impedance curves, because maybe you'll find something that's a better match for your cab, as opposed to first messing with EQ, as in the parametric EQ at the end. And then for the settings, I took something that sounded good off the bat on both. And then for the riffs, I did a few riffs in the looper. There's a gate afterwards just to keep things silent when the loop stops, between each riff. And then I have two parametric EQ blocks here. One was for the GPA-400 to try and give it some sizzle, and then one for the orange pedal baby, which was to sort of correct what I was hearing in the, I don't know if it's high mids, but at least around the 4K region where it was a bit too pushed. And by taming that down a bit, I feel you got a better response. So for me, the big difference between the two is that the Orange Pedal Baby seems to be a bit more amp-like in response and sound, if that makes sense, as opposed to the GPA-400, which seems to be a bit more like your typical kind of solid-state power amp. So the biggest test that I couldn't really show here, obviously, is at higher volumes. I have a feeling that maybe the GPA-400, given that it has more watts or power on tap, it might be better at higher volumes, but since I live in the flat, I don't want to get evicted. I can't really push the volumes to crazy levels to sort of test that out. And maybe the response at higher volumes will be different, better or not, I can't say. The one I chose, or the one I take with me to gigs as well, is the Orange Pedal Baby. It fits nicely in my pedal train backpack, which I take to gigs, that has various cables, and then this power amp. The thing with a rack unit is, well, you need, to stick that in a case, and you can get carry cases, as this is relatively light, but it's still something extra to carry around, and rather something that fits in the backpack. And most importantly, tone-wise, I prefer what I was getting out of the Orange Pedal Baby. So some quick final thoughts. I think on the two comparisons, especially the first one, you could hear more of a difference between the two. In the first quick comparison, the Harley Benton sounded a bit more muffled, at least to my ears, and the Orange Pedal Baby was a lot more open, but it had a bit more of that push on that around that 4K level, so it could come across as being a bit more harsh, and that's quite a big difference when you hear the first two back to back. Of course, if you had the two power amps, or if you had one of the two power amps, you might change your amp settings to adapt to those changes, and there's definitely things you can do on the power amp and with extra EQ to sort of help as well. So for this comparison, I use the same amp model setting, so you could get a closer A/B of how they sound like in the wild, shall we say. And then on the second test, I added EQ to dial it in a bit more to what I felt was missing on one of them, and what I thought would make things sound better on the other one. As said, in terms of response and feel, I felt the Orange Pedal Baby did a better job, but I'm sure both would be more than sufficient at a gig, and I'm not sure how much of a difference the audience would actually hear. So thanks for watching. If you like this kind of content, please drop a like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Thanks.